Alright, quick update on Smooth Love Potion. So, since our last video on Smooth Love Potion, we were calling for this breakdown of this bear flag price target. We had two major macro price targets. Right off the bat, we've come down exactly to our first price target, which was the breakdown of, well, this was the breakdown of the pennant. If we move this over, you can also call this an asymmetrical triangle, but as you can see, it's very much a bear flag as well. Price target of the bear flag is in the minuses, so nonetheless this wouldn't be valid. We could clear up our screen a tiny bit before we do jump into the TA, but nonetheless I would like to highlight it really does seem like we are forming something very reminiscent of another bear flag, or bearish pennant rather, just like we saw over here. And it's quite disappointing to see the price action of SLP has been super mundane, considering Axie Infinity is in the top, I believe it's in the top 43. If we go back to Axie Infinity, I just made a video on this, 34. So Axie Infinity is in the top 34, and since its bottom, it managed to have a reversion up about 50% or so. Looking at SLP though, we did not have a pushback up to 50%, and this is quite disappointing. Only 42% currently residing at a 33% increase. And this is interesting considering its rank number 550 and its market cap is only 22 million. So when I previously used to cover this back in the day, I used to cover this a lot more, but it has kind of died. The hype of this has kind of died out a lot since I did start my channel when I was covering this back in the day. But nonetheless, it's very interesting to see the bounces are getting weaker and weaker over time, even though the market cap is just constantly diminishing. I mean, previously we saw a 70% pump, and you would expect as the market cap gets lower and lower and lower and lower, considering we're only at 22 million right now, that we should start to see some, slightly bigger pumps. I mean, like I said, I was covering it back here, and at least this dead cat bounce was a 90% pump. If we look back here, the dead cat bounce before that was 367, and we can go through all of these. I'm going to stop here because there's not much point in going through all of these, but nonetheless, while it may not be more bullish time over time again when we do go backwards, you can see as a general rule of thumb, the bullish price action, the volume is all very much stagnating, which is not necessarily a good look for this project. Now, we are breaking to the downside, or it does look like we are getting ready to break to the downside of this, and the apex of this, even if you didn't want to consider it a bearish pennant or anything like that, if you wanted to consider this a triangle pattern, the apex of this would be on the 27th. So we've got about 48 hours until we do initiate another major move for SLP. And once again, drawing our fib, low to the high, it looks like we're currently getting stuck at the 0.5 Fibonacci. We bounced up to the 618 fib at 0.0043, and we just continue to landslide. So my macro prediction from the last video remains true. We were calling for a 57% drop. We have currently dropped, well, we came all the way down here, 52% of the drop, but we're still 22% down since my last video. So congratulations to everyone who has been sitting on the sidelines. Because like I say, I don't dislike SLP as a trade. I do recognize though that if you do read the Axie Infinity white paper, you will realize SLP has no, it doesn't have a finite supply, it has no max supply, it will be heavily inflated the more Axie players there are, and some people imagine, all SLP needs is more people to come into the Axie ecosystem. That is the worst thing to happen for SLP, because the more people playing the Axie Infinity game, then the more SLP will be printed out of thin air as rewards for these people. So counter to popular belief, the more people that play Axie, the worse the price action for SLP is going to be. This doesn't necessarily always have to be the case. They may be able to change the tokenomics in the future, and then I may be able to change my tone on it for a long term or a longer term hold. But right now, we're very much witnessing the high hyperinflation of this token, paired with the fact that we're in a bear market, paired with the fact that investors are kind of moving on to different projects now, is really dragging us to the downside. So you can see from Axie's high, it is down 99% already. Looking at the squeeze mom weekly time frame, we are absolutely fruit looping to the downside. It looks like we're about to take a massive plummet. Volume week over week looks like it's getting exponentially larger, and the weekly MACD looks like it is getting ready to flip over to the downside. This looks like it only managed to push up because of the previous price action we had, but nonetheless, As you can tell, I mean, we could have just made a 10-second video and said, look at this chart, until the Heikenashis on the weekly time frame start to switch green, then it's probably not time to get in, and subsequently the bottom is probably not near for this cryptocurrency yet. So, you know, once again, not hating on this. I like to look at everything objectively on my channel, and looking at this objectively, all the technicals are bearish. We've got a bunch of TA signals which are bearish. There is no volume stepping in. Lower time frames, we're already running to the downside, the dark green of the squeeze bomb, which is indicative that we're probably going to fall out of this bear flag in the next 2 days. It's not just SLP as well. Bear in mind, I am currently bearish on all altcoins, and thank God I have. I mean, if you think I'm, you know, being too bearish or a perma bear, go through my channel for the past couple of months and look at my price predictions on Axie. You know, I've been bearish on this since all the way up here, and it's completely landslided. So, you know, if you've been bullish on this, fair enough. If you've been DCAing this all the way down, then you've probably be getting absolutely wrecked. So all I'm trying to do is make sure that the people who do watch this channel, who do appreciate my opinion, recognize that we are in a super macro downtrend, and even when we look at the past couple of weeks, you've just got lower highs after lower highs after lower highs panning out all over the board. So this was the last macro lower high that we put in. You can also see, you know, we came up, got rejected from the 618 fib. So it is what it is. We can potentially see another leg to the upside before we do have a leg to the downside. I don't think it's very likely though. I think looking at Bitcoin, higher time frames, you're probably best to expect another leg to the downside. There's exponential bearish volume stepping in. Bitcoin, the lower time frames as well, is just riddled with lower highs after lower highs after lower highs. So myself personally, I'm expecting a move back down to the downside for SLP. And what's also interesting is when we do compare this to Bitcoin, you can see that nothing has changed as well. This is in a macro downtrend against Bitcoin. So if you've been holding SLP for the past couple of months, if you've been holding it since April of 2022, if we go back to the all-time chart, if you've been holding SLP basically for the past year, in 1 month time it will be about a year. If you've been holding this for the past year, then you have been getting wrecked against the Bitcoin pair, meaning you should have probably just held Bitcoin, because if you did hold Bitcoin at any point throughout this time, you would now be able to buy, you know, 10 times, 100 times the amount of Axie as you previously would. And you might be thinking 100 times, this guy is, you know, full of shit or whatever, but the fact of the matter is, you know, look at this. We're down 99%. Oh, that's a Fibonacci, that's the wrong thing. We are down to the dotted line down here. We're down more than 99%. So be super cautious if you're still trading this. I do think another leg to the downside is likely before we do find another local bottom / macro bottom. I'd be much more comfortable starting to DCA this or picking it up as a short-term trade once we come down to potentially the 1.618 to the 3.618. So this, in my opinion, this is the area to target. If you are planning on buying the dip on this, then at least wait until the higher time frames start to flip bullish. You'd really not be missing out too much if you simply just waited for a Heikenashii flip on the weekly time frame. So with that being said, my most conservative price target would be a 45% drop. And once again, I was talking about this in my prediction over here when we were predicting a 57% drop. I think I now have to change this because I recognize SLP is very bearish against Bitcoin, and I also recognize that Bitcoin is basically filling in lower high after lower high after lower high. Bearish momentum indicators, or the momentum indicators are very bearish, and subsequently I would have to move my price target down. I am now predicting for Axie for SLP to come down to 0.00116. This would be a 72% drop from where we are right now. So be super cautious if you're still trading this. As always, not financial advice. Cowboy out. Peace.